What they're saying is these things are not good for all of the purported benefits. They're not useful. They should probably just be avoided. Sugar would probably just be better. This is Generation Health. Every week we bring you the latest in news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices helping you lead a longer, healthier life. To my right, Mr. Dante DiMatteo, that I caught off guard.
I was yawning.
A registered pharmacist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yawning specialist. How you feeling?
Ready to podcast.
I just woke up.
Yeah. Rolled you out of bed for this. And across from me, Mr. Joey DiMatteo, registered pharmacist, board certified clinical nutritionist. How are you, sir?
Very good, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic. My name is Tyler Andrews, and I'm your host. So today, we're going to talk about a bunch of things. There's going to be a bunch of housekeeping. You guys are going to love it, I promise. But the big questions on today's show, we're going to talk about statins, sweeteners, and insulin resistance. A couple of different ways of attacking the same question. It's going to be fun. But first, when we were kids, everybody, certain lessons have to be learned the hard way. And in my experience, don't steal was always one of those questions. What did you steal as a child?
Don't have a great answer to this one. Honestly, the only thing I would steal was food. I would get into the snacks. My mom would try to put them high, and I would take the food. Other than that,
knowing it was wrong.
Oh yeah, of course. Knowing it was hidden from me for a reason. And I was even trying to be crafty enough to not eat like the whole bag, but just eat like enough to satisfy me, but not like enough to make it obvious.
Yeah. Did it work?
Not really. No.
Did you ever get broken of that habit?
No, but does it now is my oldest son.
Yeah.
He brings the chair over. He'll drag it all the way across to like the pantry area, climb up there and get stuff. We have to put it up high.
The sins of the father revisited upon the son.
He's got the worst sweet tooth. Unreal.
Dante?
Oh man.
Did you steal anything?
I can't think of anything.
Really?
I forgot to look at this ahead of time. But the only thing that I can remember, that's what I tried to think of.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the only one with a legit answer to this question.
The only thing I remember stealing is actually kind of recent.
Whoa. Well, we said as a child.
This was childlike, I guess. We were on rotation at the end of pharmacy school. It was like my second to last rotation. And it was like a long-term care facility, like a long-term care pharmacy. So there weren't like customers and like patients in there, but they had all these Skittles in the back that were like used as like demo pills for using like their machines and all this other kind of stuff. And I would just go back and steal this. Like anytime we'd have to go in there, I would just always steal from this. They had like 5 million Skittles. I
was really worried you were going to say you were stealing from old people or something. I was going to say, we got to cut this. We can't publish that.
Yeah, that was the most recent thievery that I could think of.
Okay, well, fine. I'll be the one with the serious answer. The only time that I stole anything that I remember, I was in daycare. So this would have been around about 86 or 87, 1986, 1987, which is relevant only because Star Wars was still fresh and worthwhile. And I remember being in daycare and they had a Jawa. No, it was a Yoda. It was a Yoda action figure, little tiny thing. And I wanted it because I loved Yoda. And I was like, nobody at this daycare appreciates this. And I stole Yoda. And I felt very guilty for a very long time because I never returned it. So I'm very sorry. If I find it, I'll send it back. Well, that was a downer. All right.
Maybe something will come to me.
You can interrupt. This is your podcast. So in the middle of it, if you think of something, you're talking about statins. Oh, by the way, also, I stole a car. No? I'm trying.
Joey did that.
I was going to say, I would technically, I guess it's stealing it, but I was going to return it. I would just take the car out whenever I was like 15 or 16 and drive around a little bit. So I guess technically that is true.
Okay.
But I had no intention of keeping it and never kept it. But
Okay.
Yeah. So one time my friend, because a couple of my friends, we used to do it so often. My one,
You used to do it so often.
yeah, one of my friends' dad put a orange like underneath the tire to see if we left, because we would try to park it like right in the same spot again. And he came in with like a crushed up orange.
Wait, so this wasn't your dad's car that you were stealing?
No, it was just a mix of all of ours. I would take my own parents and my friends would take their own parents. Yeah.
Wow.
It was definitely something that we did a lot of.
Okay,
Actually.
Dante, do you want to take another crack at this? This is getting better.
Oh man. Wow. I wish I could follow up on that. I mean, I assisted that one. So
Did you?
Yes, you did. You did.
Okay, all right.
I'll think of something.
Aiding and abetting.
Mhm.
Fair enough. All right. So, being serious, this is an email we got from Jerome. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do that by emailing us questions at askjoedimatteo.com. Questions at askjoedimatteo.com. All those questions come to us. We answer them on the air if we can. So please email us that. Jerome did that, and here's what he had to say. This is a long one, so brace yourself, boys. My wife has diabetes as a result of steroid-induced pancreatitis. Initially, the doctors told us it was insulin resistance and it was temporary. That was 25 years ago. At the time, we had never heard of the terms or diagnosis insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome. Nowadays, there are hundreds of videos on YouTube about both. My questions are: 1, are either conditions really reversible? 2, what's the real deal with statins and cholesterol levels? Our body needs cholesterol, that's why we make it, yet we've been told for decades the fat in our diet is the enemy. The AHA now says there is no correlation between dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol. That would be the cholesterol in your blood, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems carbs and sugar, fructose especially, are the culprits. It's also confusing. Big pharma and processed food manufacturers seem to be in cahoots. 3, sucralose. Is it really safe in any amount? And 4, stevia. Is it safe? It's hard to know what to believe. Depending on who's paying for the study and their agenda, you may not get the true results. The study is never published or the stats are manipulated. Please help bring some clarity. Kind regards, Jerome. Jerome should be hosting a podcast because he knows a lot about this stuff, it seems like.
Yeah, a lot in there for sure.
I'm glad they're numbered out here. It makes it a lot easier. So, number 1, is insulin sensitivity and metabolic syndrome reversible?
Yeah, I think maybe it's like a matter of semantics.
Yeah.
In this case, I think that it's treatable enough to basically. So if we're looking at insulin sensitivity first, so it seems like it's a matter of semantics.
Okay.
I think maybe remission would be a better way to think of it, especially when we're looking at insulin resistance and diabetes. It's treatable enough to get, treatable and manageable enough to get, the laboratory markers in that case that we're concerned about to a reasonable and manageable level.
Right.
So, I think a lot of times when you look at this stuff, is there a cure?
Right.
Is it reversible? I think maybe you can feel let down, so to speak, but you can be treated right down to basically a, normal level, so to speak, when you're looking at, markers of diabetes.
So it's a technically no, but functionally more or less. Yes.
Yeah, I would say so, Joe. I don't know.
Yeah, because metabolic syndrome, you're really looking at just a cluster of individual issues and concerns. So
thus syndrome.
Yes. So
All right.
High blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat, especially around the waist, and high cholesterol.
Yeah.
So can you reverse metabolic syndrome? It's a lot of work, but if you handle and deal with all those things individually, then yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Second question he had here. Statins and cholesterol. He said, is fat the enemy? Dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol, and then carbs role in lipid levels. Those were the two kind of big points there that I broke out. Statins and cholesterol. What's he talking about? I know he's worried about it.
Yeah, I think just in general, just kind of chatting about this, I think things have a tendency in big headlines to kind of just start going back and forth, and opposite things have to be true.
Right.
So first, for years it was we learning about cholesterol and how bad red meat is for you and how bad blood fats are. So cut out fat. And then they started making, Sour Patch Kids labels that say no fat contained.
Right.
Like that means they're okay.
Yeah.
And now we're beginning to swing, if not have totally swung over to, just eat all the steak and stuff you want. Just as long as you're,
never eating sugar.
Carb-free, Atkins, keto, whatever. So now as long as you're not eating sugar, you can eat whatever you want. So just, again, kind of in a conversational way, that just seems now the way that we've totally swung,
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the answer, I guess, is fat the enemy? The answer is no, fat's not the enemy. And yes, you need cholesterol, but we do not believe, we did a whole special on cholesterol. We do not believe that there is any correlation between dietary cholesterol and cholesterol in the blood, correct?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there are specific situations where maybe reducing dietary cholesterol would be helpful, but for the vast majority, and then it seems like in this case, it's not, the silver bullet, as far as the thing that you got to worry about, because essentially there's our bodies are fine tuned to, if there's a lot of exogenous cholesterol coming in from the diet, it has a way to, down regulate what's actually sort of being produced.
Right.
And so it's, I found that to be very interesting, and it seems obviously that the increase in refined carbohydrates, certain kinds of fats, those two macronutrients, specifically fats and carbohydrates, and also, your total caloric intake, those inputs, from a lifestyle dietary perspective, those are the main culprits of, hyperlipidemia.
Hey guys, Tyler Andrews breaking in for just 2 seconds. Because we have to say thank you. Thank you so much for how you have responded to us in the first season of Generation Health. To show you how grateful we are giving you 23% off of your next Essentials purchase at our website. Anything in the Essentials product line, throw as much of it as you want in your cart, and at checkout, use code FANSGET23. FANSGET23, fans get 23. It is a one-time use coupon, can't keep using it forever, and it is for a limited time. So make sure you stock up, get all the things you want, and know that we are grateful. That's why we're doing this. So from us to you, thank you so much. Please keep liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you. Back to the show.
Sucralose and stevia, are they safe? I know we talked about that in a recent episode too. There was a whole bunch of kerfuffle over if you eat, which one was it? It was going to give you a heart attack immediately.
I think the way we're talking about erythritol.
Oh,
yeah,
so that's neither one of these.
Those are sugar alcohols, right?
But it's all in the same family.
A lot of times, yeah, we mention them in the same conversation, but I think they're, because they're technically carbohydrates or whatever, we have to, whatever.
Yeah.
Sugar alcohols.
And
they're in their own sort of category.
Sweet replacements for sugar. That's going to transition us quite nicely into this article from the WHO. But before I go there, is there a 2-second answer to his direct question? Are they safe?
I think generally there's enough evidence to say that in, sensible amounts they're safe. But to have a diet built around them,
right,
not ideal either.
Yeah. I think moderation is definitely the key. To me, still feel more comfortable with stevia.
Yep.
And not just because it's natural. There are plenty of other drugs we know about that are natural as well. And it does get processed.
Right.
So it goes from, I believe, about 30 to 40 times sweeter than sugar naturally to about 200. So again, it does get processed.
Yeah.
But I still feel a little more comfortable with something that's natural with mild processing than something like sucralose that's, purely a chemical. And by now, even though it's been around a while, there's a lot of smoke around it still.
Sure.
With a lot of the artificial sweeteners.
Fair enough. Which then brings us nicely into this article from the WHO. The World Health Organization, WHO, has released a new guideline on non-sugar sweeteners, or NSS, which recommends against the use of these NSS to control body weight or reduce the risk of non-communicable diseases. The recommendation is based on the findings of a systematic review of the available evidence, which suggests that use of NSS does not confer any long-term benefits in reducing body fat in adults and children. Results of the review also suggest that there may be potential undesirable effects from long-term use of non-sugar sweeteners, such as increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and mortality in adults. Quote, replacing free sugars with NSS does not help with weight control in the long term. People need to consider other ways to reduce free sugars, such as consuming food with naturally occurring sugars like fruit or unsweetened food and beverages, unquote, says Francesco Branca, WHO Director for Nutrition and Food Safety. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. That was not on purpose. Quote, NSS are not essential dietary factors and have no nutritional value. People should reduce the sweetness of the diet altogether, starting early in life to improve their health, unquote. The recommendation applies to all people except individuals with pre-existing diabetes and includes all systematic and naturally occurring or modified non-nutritive sweeteners that are not classified as sugars found in manufactured foods and beverages or sold on their own to be added to foods and beverages by consumers. Common NSS include aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, stevia, and stevia derivatives. The recommendation does not apply to personal care and hygiene products containing non-sugar sweeteners such as toothpaste, skin cream, and medications, or to the low-calorie sugars and sugar alcohol polyols. Did I say that right?
Polyols.
Polyols, okay, which are sugars or sugar derivatives containing calories and are therefore not considered NSS, because the link observed in the evidence between NSS and disease outcomes might be confounded by baseline characteristics of study participants and complicated patterns of NSS use. The recommendation has been assessed as conditional following WHO process for developing guidelines. This signals that policy decisions based on this recommendation may require substantive discussion in specific country contexts, linked, for example, to the extent of consumption in different age groups. Okay, that was a huge amount of reading for me because of my small brain. What are we talking about here? Non-sugar sweeteners. I thought we just said they're not the end of the world.
So basically, well, that's part of the difference is that this does not include sugar alcohols. I know it was mentioned in there, but I think it needs emphasized.
Okay, that's what that meant.
Yes.
Oh.
So the sugar alcohols are like xylitol, sorbitol, the things that end in tol. Okay, that's the TOL. That's where you're going to typically see those. They're 25 to 100% of sweetest sugar.
Okay.
They carry, the calories are a little controversial about how they're processed, but there's very small amount of calories per gram, about 2.6, depending on the source or how you break it down. So that's, I think, one key thing. Then the other complicating thing is that stevia is included. Because like in my mind, I kind of like lump stevia in with the sugar alcohols.
Okay.
Because of it being natural.
Yeah.
But in this case, and rightfully so by the definition they're using, it is more lumped in with the aspartames and the saccharins / Splendas, all those things that have been around for a long time. Stevia is included in that bucket for these purposes. Sugar alcohols are not.
Okay, so this is talking specifically about what you mentioned before, the chemical sweeteners.
Yes. So your brand names, again, Splenda, does include stevia as well, but then, sucralose.
That sweet and low,
all that stuff.
Equal,
all those things
all
that
those.
since even we were kids were in the little packets at the diner, all that stuff except for the actual sugar, of course.
Okay, all right.
So it's stuff that's in Diet Coke, all that.
So they're saying it's not useful for weight loss or reducing risk of diabetes or all those things, right?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And this is based on a massive review of the available data.
Mm-hmm. Now, for the most part, from my understanding, the data that they pulled together, they were all observational studies, and so it's somewhere in this write up they do say that this is a conditional recommendation. So this is not like hasn't made its way to policy quite yet or anything. Right. So maybe some things will change, or there's certain things that they'll soften on eventually. Who knows? But I think that was just an important part to distinguish. Now,
so this isn't as settled as like cigarettes cause cancer.
Exactly.
Okay.
But again, like, you see the WHO comes out with a consensus statement like this. It can cause public confusion, worry, concern, all types of things. I mean, it's kind of been everywhere, and especially at least in the in the bubble that I'm in a bit, that talks about the potential benefits, in terms of weight loss and all those sorts of things, substituting these non-nutritive sweeteners for sugar sweetened beverages and how it has helped people. It's a bit jarring to read this from such a, large organization, really.
Yeah.
And so I think hopefully that's what we can unpack is there's still, even though this is a pretty black and white statement, there are still critiques, there's still nuance to it. There's still, still a general vibe of not to view this as sort of the end of the world, in my opinion.
Okay. So before we do that, what they're saying is these things are not good for all of the purported benefits. They're not useful. They should probably just be avoided. Sugar would probably just be better. Is that the punchline?
They're not quite going that far. They're not saying sugar is better. They're just saying that they can't recommend replacing it. So that's where some of the semantics come in, because with a lot of these things, it's still just, to me, so much about moderation.
Yeah.
Like what individually are the people doing? I still find it very hard to believe that if I have 2 Diet Cokes a week, 3 or 4 a month, that would be better off having the Coke.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I mean? And I think the other thing is then they start comparing on the other end of this. You can't compare Diet Coke to water either. You can't say, well, there's Coke here, and then it's just pick Diet Coke or water. They're the same thing. I think that's crazy too. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think, and no, I'm kind of going all over the place, but I do think a lot of these points are ultimately what we want to hammer home is that kind of discussion about what do you do with this information, with this headline, and then these 90 pages that I printed out a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
that's a good point, with the water comparison as well. Because again, this is not the first time that, non-nutritive sweetened beverages or food products have come up in conversation. And so
won't be the last either.
Yeah. And nobody, and I don't think any of us, I think it would be easy to misconstrue this idea, but nobody's saying that you should substitute, Diet Coke for water.
Right.
No one was saying substitute Gatorade Zero for water.
Right.
So that's
even that big quote in there said people need to move to a less sweetened diet overall. Just eat sweeter things, less sweet things.
And one of the reasons for something like that, because even that's, I have young kids and that's been on my mind. Essentially we go to, we do shop at Whole Foods a lot.
Yeah.
Because we value what kind of food we have. Not that's the only way to do it. But I like that they have certain ingredients that just aren't in there.
Yeah.
So sugar alcohols are in there. Stevia is in there. It's like the only pop my kids know has the stevia in it, but none of the artificial sweeteners. But at the same time, I've definitely thought a lot about, I'm still giving my kids sweet stuff.
Right.
I'm still turning on their brain to sweet things. And I know that that's not quite the route to go either. Because, it's not like, hey, you can go to Whole Foods and eat anything in there. Some of it's packed with sugar and some of it's packed with stevia, so those kind of, and I think what's key though is, and they have it in a couple different points here, but there's more than just sweet taste receptors in your mouth.
Right.
They're in your GI tract. Okay. They're in the pancreas, they're in the brain, and they're in adipose tissue. So yes, the start is oral, but you are sending signals to the rest of your body. Sugar's coming.
Wow.
And so that's again why I'm going to keep harping on the water thing. Like Dante said, nobody's saying drink Diet Coke instead of water. They're the same.
Right.
That's you've got to know still kind of what you're doing here.
Am I correct in thinking that even the non-nutritive sweeteners and stevias and all of them, that they all, is it dopamine that they light up the same as sugar?
Great point. Yes.
So in terms of neurologically speaking, it triggers the same thing.
Any food can do it. Like we've talked about, gambling can do it. Obviously, certain medications, drugs can do it. But yes, fatty food can do it. Sugar, but yes, everybody's a little bit different, and it does seem like the sweets are what the average person kind of gets lit up by.
Yeah.
So that is a great point in terms of that reward, that dopamine center that does feed into complicating already complicated issues like health and fitness and diet.
22 episodes in, I made a great point. Okay, so what do we do about this? What else? You had some other things you wanted to talk about that were adding shades of gray to this whole thing.
Yeah. No, I know I mentioned like at the outset as well that this is most of what has led them to this conclusion has come from observational studies looking at all of these different sweeteners. So there's no, again, just by default, there's no way to prove a causal relationship between, let's say, Splenda and cardiovascular disease, or stevia and metabolic disease, whatever. So the shade of gray, I think, in that case would be that there are randomized control trials that have fairly strong, that are fairly strongly powered, that are to the point where you could make a recommendation to a patient that have shown that making a substitute or using a head-to-head comparison of whatever non-nutritive sweetener it is versus a sugar-sweetened beverage. I think there was a study that looked at younger children and weight loss, and that substitution over a short period of time did help children lose weight.
Sure.
And so
that was one of the things I was like, how is it that there's no weight loss benefit when you're reducing your caloric intake? Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, that's one randomized control trial. I'm not saying that to totally refute what's seen in the observational trials. It's just that there's so much out there with this that, over a short period of time, as far as like a stepping stone, whether it's a young adult or, whoever that's sort of on a weight loss journey or whatever, that these, putting a little bit of Splenda or stevia in your yogurt instead of having the one that has 15 grams of sugar in it.
Right.
I mean, come on. Like that's a decent place to start for somebody.
Yeah.
On a practical
when you're
level.
talking about moderation, I'm just never not going to agree with that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't imagine what the study would have to look like for me to think that you're still better off doing those 15 grams of sugar.
Right.
It's just whenever it starts going, like everything else starts going just way out of hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I lose this train of thought, so we talked about this being mainly observational studies. There are randomized control trials that do show that there could be some benefit when substituting in terms of weight loss specifically. And then the third layer to that, looking back at some of the observational data, would be that there is the potential for reverse causality. And so that a lot of the, is it the sweeteners that are leading to these disease states that we're seeing down line, or is it those with the disease states who are adding Splenda, adding stevia on top of already drinking sugar sweetened beverages and highly processed foods that have sugar and Splenda? You know what I mean? It's like there's so much there.
I wondered that because there was a carve out in the quote I read that said something about diabetes. This doesn't apply to people with diabetes. Mm-hmm. And I thought, is that because they've already done the damage and now this is the best option for not making things worse?
Yeah, as much as the brain, so to speak, recognizes sweet. Yeah, it's these non-nutritive sweeteners don't cause the same spike in blood sugar and spike in insulin. Yeah. There's no, it doesn't do the same thing physiologically. There might be like a little, tidbit of insulin or whatever that gets released from the whatever is triggered in the brain, and it might make for kind of a compelling story, but it's not doing the same thing as sugar as far as your serum glucose, so to speak.
Makes sense. The diabetic body literally cannot handle glucose, right? And that's ultimately So, but that's still, when you're tying it all together, I think still is an interesting way, like hold up here, so we're going to start trying to swing this pendulum back to sugar, right? Like of all things. Yeah. And I think too, a lot of the studies were different. But a lot of the studies, they were just allowing people to eat normal and then just swapping out sugar and for NSS. Yeah. And you say, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. But a lot of the people, if you're consuming a lot of sugar daily, enough that you're going to make an impact in a study's results, you're probably not eating a real good diet. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is you kind of just went from, this is an exaggeration, but you kind of went from the number one at McDonald's with a Coke to a number one at McDonald's with a Diet Coke. Right. Yes. And if that's the case, even though that's a wide generalization, if that is the case, you're still going to see some numbers that are of issue, BMI wise, metabolically, etc.
Huge confounder.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So it could be something completely unrelated that's still causing these same issues.
A general lack of health.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's already there, that one very important variable, but only one was changed.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So the punchline is, it's not that the study is nonsense. It's that it's still not the whole picture. And I did like that quote from that lady that just, we need to have a less sweet diet overall.
sure.
That's a reasonable statement. That's true.
Yeah.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
but it's tough. It's hard to say all of these things at the same time without then like having to explain them a little further.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's tough. It's like we're saying, well, it could be a nice primary or like stepping stone intervention to introduce Diet Coke to somebody who has only drank Coke their whole life.
Right.
Like that could be a nice step. But then we're also saying, yeah, we got to make these diets as little, decrease the sweetness by, a millionfold as soon as somebody's old enough to, eat or whatever. So it is hard. And, I don't know. I think a lot of these things can be said like together, is all I'm trying to say.
People can handle a little bit more nuance than I think most of society thinks they can.
And also it's like, I almost feel like this shouldn't even have like made it as public as it did. It's like, this should have just been like sent to physicians or sent to healthcare facilities to say like, hey, this is potentially coming and we're not 100% sure on this yet, but there's a ton of observational data that's pushing us this way.
Yeah.
As opposed to now almost like this hysteria amongst lay population.
Yep.
It's like what practical takeaway really is there from this?
I
right
find
now,
these things because I'm looking at news sites and they're making press releases.
Right.
It's not like, I'm deep scouring the WHO's website for what's the latest on non-nutritive sweeteners,
Yeah.
Val, fair enough. All right. Anything else we're missing?
Still a lot we don't know also about particularly saccharin and its effect on the gut microbiome. So I know we talk about kind of probiotics and gut flora as much as possible, but there are maybe, again, I think we're learning about mechanisms that potentially don't give you this immediate like blood sugar spike, but that still have some effect on your body and the way you process food in general. This study I found was pretty interesting. It was done by Johns Hopkins University PhD in microbiology.
Okay.
And what they analyzed stool and saliva samples, so both ends, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
For those that were given, they gave them different packets. Some people got a packet of saccharin, some got a packet of aspartame, some got a packet of sugar. So they included sugar in there, and they found that it's still in process in terms of what exactly to do with this information, but they found significant difference in the abundance, activity, and types of bacteria in the gut and the mouth of all the different parties, even within different, comparing before and after, of course.
Yeah.
Even within some different, synthetic sweeteners. So difference in aspartame versus sucralose versus sugar before and after in the gut and the stool.
Okay, wait. So say that again. So you're saying that even with those non-sugar sweeteners, that there was still activation of the bacteria?
There were changes, alterations, and it wasn't all the same. So we could be sitting here a year, 2, 5 from now saying aspartame needs to go. Saccharin is the one if you're going to do synthetic. I'm just saying that's potentially even,
Got it.
And again, the details aren't in there. They're finalizing their results. But this is it's got a good name. New Scientist is the name of the website. So they're all trying to be on the cutting edge of things. Not this was really interesting. Be curious to see how it plays out, but they know they saw differences. What's still done is kind of the study end of things. What exactly are they? What do they mean, etc.
So that's a little halfway study, kind of like maybe this WHO thing should have been.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that's just proof that more, I mean, there's obviously way more being studied and done than we even realize in this respect. This is a huge industry, but there's going to be stuff that comes out probably monthly and yearly for, indefinitely.
There will be no shortage of things for us to talk about because I'm sure that we will
Yeah.
have plenty more headlines of,
Yep.
oh my gosh, the world is on fire.
Yeah. And I don't think we've said this, but like if you're not currently eating, if you're currently not adding NSS by way of, diet beverages or something in your plain yogurt or whatever, like don't
start.
you don't need to start
point,
either.
yeah.
I think that may have got lost in translation.
That's a good point.
But it's not the end of the world either.
Got it. Especially what is the thing you say all the time? What are you replacing it with?
Mm-hmm.
What are you replacing and what are you replacing it with?
Yep.
So if you're replacing sugar, then this is probably a good halfway step. But then can you replace this with something else?
Exactly.
Like fruit.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yep.
And then lastly, it's a little bit of change of gears, but I think you have to mention, especially when you're talking about something like aspartame, there are definitely some potential neurological issues when again, particularly that one is used in high doses, especially when you're talking about kids.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Kids don't have the Coke. So yeah, I give mine the stevia for better or worse sometimes, but aspartame seems to, again, learning problems, headaches, seizure, migraines, moods, anxiety, even sleep issues. So there's, outside of gut microflora, outside of weight, BMI, there's still some other things out there about these, NNSs, and I'd just be remiss if I didn't mention at least that.
Sure. Which one is aspartame? What's the brand name?
Aspartame is,
Oh no.
Oh, goodness.
it's not Splenda, it's NutraSweet. So it's the old,
It's the oldest one.
and it's equal.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the old one. I believe even like Coke switched out or something like that. So
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, in terms of normal content, this is going to be a relatively short episode, but because we're now more than 20 episodes in, I think this is episode 22. I need to go back and count. We just want to do a little breakdown and analysis of this because this is going to be our last episode for a little bit. We're going to take a break, take some vacations, get a tan. You guys got the jump start on that. And come back in a little bit. For frame of reference, let me be clear. First of all, we're going to take off August. We'll be back in September. So we're not going away forever, just taking a break. This is a lot of work, guys. But we'll be back in September. Specifics will follow as soon as we have them. So 20 plus episodes in, what are your thoughts? What's been harder than you thought?
harder than I thought. Honestly, I don't think anything's been harder than I thought.
Good.
Seriously.
That's great.
But I have a tendency to blow things like this up.
Okay.
Like in school, I didn't like giving the presentations, and I didn't like doing the big projects, and take a test or whatever. Okay, I'll handle that. But anything like bigger scope or bigger scale or public speaking, whatever, I always like shied away from or blew up in my mind. So for me, it has been hard.
Yes.
It is a lot of work. My procrastination has not gotten better yet, but just because, you know, how I've summed all that up, I can't say anything's harder than I expected.
Fair enough. But you thought it was going to be incredibly difficult to begin with.
Exactly.
So got it.
My scale is very different.
You set your expectations real high.
Yes.
Okay. Dante?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Except I would say the tests, all of it, the tests, the presentations, it was just a chaotic.
In school.
Yeah, in school. Very, very chaotic preparation process. So it has, been a little traumatic at times preparing for this. It feels like feels like I'm walking into melon before an exam, like slightly. But I think with each episode, with each day, there's a little more goofing around, camaraderie beforehand versus like flipping pages and notes, looking at the last formula before the test, that sort of stuff. So I think the lesson from that is like we just keep chipping away, and eventually it's like this is going to be a blip on the radar, and we'll be so lock and key doing, getting it done.
Yeah, and I think too, like we watched our dad do it, and he made it look so easy.
Yeah.
He didn't have any of the nerves or anything like that, or any of the apprehension, but he made it look easy because he studied all the time.
Yeah.
And because he just lived it, breathed it, studied it, and then he has the confidence on top of that. So for me personally, I'm still thinking of him doing it. I'm like, oh man, those are some big shoes, that kind of thing,
100%.
So that's kind of been with me, but as time goes, even the good staying, but the nervousness, the anxiety that I would especially feel maybe the first like half a dozen, it's fading. And that's been good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe it's 20 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty crazy.
And I'm pretty sure it's 22.
Yeah.
What you have on here,
it's,
yeah.
It's pretty, that is pretty wild. It feels good. I mean, there's 1,000,001 ways to improve,
100%.
collectively, individually,
Yeah.
of course. But the fact that there's like 20 on film, like we could say that we did those.
Published.
That is wild.
Published.
Yeah.
Plus the ones that, may have gotten scrapped.
There
that
are a
still
lot
took the
that
prep, but
did not get published. Not because they were bad, just because we were still learning. So,
yeah, that does feel good to reflect on. But
Yeah.
again, like there's still, we're still going to walk away from this each thinking of 10 things we could have done better.
Yeah.
we'll make a note, write it down. We'll do it next time. We can call this season 1 and that's season 2 or something.
Definitely. Yeah.
What have you learned?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've learned that I have a long, long way to go, but that I can do this, that this isn't as scary or as difficult or as bad as I thought it would be. Again, it's hard, all that, but I'm just, again, where I had the bar.
That's because the listeners don't know behind the scenes the number of conversations we had about, no, you can totally do this. You can totally do this.
Yes.
And you guys were reasonably hesitant about, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm going, no, I promise. You guys know so much more that I don't know any of this stuff. And I live and breathe this stuff with you every day. You guys are, that's what I've learned, that you guys still know more than me. Dante.
You don't give yourself enough credit, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, I made a
seriously.
good point in episode 22.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned some of the same things. Obviously, I can echo that it's, not quite as scary once you just get up to do it. But then also, you learn how much there is to learn about these different topics and why there are specialists in each of these areas, and that we're truly just generalists here. And maybe we have different interests, so to speak. But look, we're just presenting things as, as clearly as we can.
Yeah.
And that I have more and more respect for those that specialize on each of these individual topics that we've hit on, because, Tyler will write he'll prepare the shows. In his mind, these two questions should have taken 5 minutes. It took Joey and I 500 minutes to even get started because the topic felt so big to us. And I think that, again, that just speaks volumes to how much depth there really is. How much depth there is to a 2-minute answer. Yeah. How much goes into just giving a 2-minute answer. It's really,
people should know that if you email us a question, it's entirely likely you're going to get a 35-minute answer. So, get it in here. We want to answer these. Has this affected you guys personally, other than, we're in Dante's kitchen right now, or dining room. So other than invading your space and disrupting your schedule, how has this affected you guys personally?
Similar to what I said before, for me, I've just always hated kind of these like presentation style things and getting on a mic, getting up in front of people. And now I'm not as nervous doing it.
Good.
I mean, there's some personal progress there, as corny as that sounds.
No.
There has been, a significant amount for me.
That's
I'm not
awesome.
waking up with butterflies this morning. Show 4, I was waking up, my stomach was churning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
for sure.
That's good.
Or embarrassing, one or the other.
Well,
but-
so long as we didn't get it on mic.
Yeah. There's a lot, I don't know. There's a lot of ways that I could interpret this question for sure. Especially when you start to think of like, okay, what if, do I want to see the response from people? Is that what's affecting me personally? Is that what's most rewarding?
Mm-hmm.
There's that side of it that I've tried, even though it's been 20 episodes, I'm just trying not to think of all that yet.
Yeah.
That this is one of the most process oriented things that I've ever done, Joey's ever done, that we like, if we were to jump to how many views did cholesterol get? Did they like sleep? Did they like what I have to say? Did they think I'm a dumbass, or whatever. Like that, those sorts of things are, interesting. That's an interesting personal, I guess, thing that I grapple with this endeavor.
Yeah. You get one piece of negative feedback, one person that says, hey, you look dumb on that. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's it. I can't do any of this ever again.
Yeah. And then the other level to that personally is that, I've learned again how complicated learning is, in that at this time in my life, maybe the last few years, like it's the most I've ever read on my own. It's the most I've ever, intellectually tried to improve.
Yeah.
The last time I could really think of that is when we had to during college and such.
Sure.
But learning is more than just kind of reading the book, putting it down, but taking what you read in the book, so to speak, and then talking about it with you guys or talking about it on camera, and how much of a gap there really is. And again, how much appreciation I have for presenters and teachers and people who take complicated information, package it up in their own way, and then put it out there for the public. That's what I've learned. And I think personally I think we can all derive meaning is how do we take what we learn and make it sound like pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And help. So,
and and along those lines, especially when we're talking about supplements and more cutting edge fitness regimens, etc., the amount of conflicting things when you're trying to put this together in this arena is crazy. If we were a little more gimmicky about it, you could easily just say, hey, Dante, you're taking the pro side on this subject. Joe, you're taking the con.
Yep.
And
ready, set,
debate
go.
it out. And we would both be able to, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So to even sift through what your own beliefs are on a lot of this stuff, it's a process. Then finding kind of your voice, so to say, and how you want to present it. It's definitely an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's an interesting point, that it also helps to, especially in this very divisive, controversial time when it comes to such things as health and fitness, it is really good to go through all of that and go, no, there are good people on both sides of these issues. And a lot of times they have good data on both sides of these issues. And so the punchline is we don't know. And that's not a sexy punchline. Nobody wants to read that. I want the answer.
But sometimes that's what we say.
Yeah.
I mean, learning as much as we've learned literally as far as specific subjects, it's really just proven. It feels like the more I learn, the less I know.
Yep.
And that's humbling. As far as the way maybe I felt when, I was 19 studying for a test, it's like, I know everything at this point. I'm going out to pass the test, and I'm done with it after that. Whereas now it's like, dude, I mean, we could stick on a subject for weeks and weeks and weeks and not feel like we are anywhere close to subject matter experts. And how complicated, just interpreting research is and all that kind of stuff. And we're not even experts on that, I mean, it's this was quite a journty to go down.
I'm excited.
And reflecting on this was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at this like, earlier. Now I'm like, this one,
went really well.
Producer had another good point.
I'll be spinning some of these answers and questions in my head for a little while.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, listen, folks, we are taking a break. We will be back in September with new episodes. Until then, go back and watch the ones you haven't seen yet or listened to, or just watch them again. Because honestly, I've listened to the cholesterol episode. You mentioned that. I've listened to that thing probably 3 or 4 times at this point, in addition to sitting in this chair while doing it all, and I still haven't gotten it all. So I guarantee you there's something more for you to learn and all of that. Anything we mentioned product-wise is available on our website. You can go to askjoedimatteo.com. That site is also where you can find the newsletter to sign up and keep up to date with what's going on. You can find past episodes of this show. You can find the audio or video podcast. You can find old episodes of the Ask Joe DiMatteo show that started all of this. If you have a question, email it to us. It's going to be a little bit till we get to it, but questions@askjoedimatteo.com. We need more of those. The articles that we referenced today will be available down in the show notes. So if you want to read those yourself, one of those was over 90 pages. So maybe, you've got a month. Go ahead and get into it. See if we told the truth. If you're just listening, you're missing out on half the fun. This is all video as well. So go check it out on YouTube or Rumble, or if you like listening, listen to it. It's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And that's it for us. Josiah Schweinberg runs our cameras. Maybe gets a microphone next time.
I like it. Yeah. I like it.
Probably not.
Yeah. Definitely.
No, definitely not. No. Michael Deppish, our editor. Joyce Gibb, our nurse practitioner. She handles private consultations and every once in a while is on the show. Diane Silverman manages our products. Terry does scheduling. Cecilia does distribution. Joey DiMatteo. Dante DiMatteo. I'm Tyler Andrews, and that is it for us for this season.
We're definitely getting Josiah Mike next season.
I love it.
We'll see you guys in about a month.
You're still here. Oh, sweet. Well, just a reminder then. Go to the website, askjodimatteo.com. Fans get 23. Use that code, get 23% off your next Essentials product purchase on the website. Anything Essentials that's in your cart, 23% off. Thank you so much. It's only for you guys, the fans, that are watching and listening to the show. We will see you guys again in season 2, coming in September.